Knowledge is a wonderful attribute. I think acquiring it means to me more than anything else. I'm 88 years young and I have so little time left that the amazing improvements in our lifestyle due to progress in science, medical health improvements is really available to everybody.
This is something that we found in the past couple of months. It turns out that actually the worm can reverse in several different ways, at least two. So sometimes when it just moves around, as you can see in the video, it just reverses by itself. So that would be the equivalent of us just moving forward, thinking of something and stepping back. The worms also reverse when they are poked on the nose. So you would think that, well, if a human gets poked on the nose, then we are going to step back as well, but we are probably going to raise our hands. And that's exactly what happens in the worm as well. For us scientifically, that's a very interesting question, how we can use such a tiny brain to do one thing in several different ways. And that's actually quite relevant to humans as well, because we also do a number of behaviors, a number of very simple behaviors in different ways. And how that's done in our brain can be very interesting.
We take pictures of the heart while the subject is exercising. This looks like it might be relatively straightforward, however it is actually quite challenging. So we have to take into account that the subject is exercising, so they might be moving. Their heart is moving as well, and also their diaphragm is moving, because we can't ask them to hold their breath while they're exercising. So we have to take all of those factors into account. So it can actually be quite a challenge. And we are currently the only place in the UK which is doing adult exercise CMR. Great Ormond Street are doing it in children.
We are very interested in finding out what these signals are, how they're controlled, and how they affect your whole body physiology. There's increasing evidence that these crosstalk mechanisms have roles in very real clinical diseases such as obesity, diabetes, stress-oriented diseases and so on. So we use a model organism to examine what these signalling mechanisms are. So as I say, it's a genetic workhorse. The tools nowadays are exquisite. They are fantastic. We can produce them very quickly because of the short lifespan. If you're to do this in a mouse, a lab mouse lives for about 3 years. You have to wait quite a long time to get the maturity, the sexual maturity, before you can breed these things on. You can do this in 10 days. It really is phenomenal. Actually, I think we've got a sense of humour, so I quite enjoy some of the names that we've given to our mutants. Here's one which has extra bristles on its eyebrows, and it's called Groucho. Tin Man, here's a fly embryo here. This is the wild type. This is the fly's heart forming here, down here, in a very, very young embryo. In this mutation, the heart doesn't form, and that's called Tin Man, from the Tin Man in the Wizard of Oz.
And in red is a mutant that was identified in the lab. So here you've only changed one single gene, and you can see that the life expectancy has doubled. And what's impressive, so if you look at the survival curve, you can actually see that these worms are healthier for longer, because this top part of the graph is extended. They're not just falling off at the same time. So not only are you extending lifespan, you're also improving health, which is really fundamental in what we're trying to achieve. Pathways that have been identified that extend lifespan are to do with nutrient sensing. So a lot, for instance, these ones in particular are in the insulin signaling pathway. So how organisms respond to sugar and energy, and so nutrient sensing. And there's a similar pathway which is involved with how you sense proteins in the diet. So it really appears that nutrition and understanding the nutritional balance is key to aging. There are studies looking at populations of centenarians, or sort of very long-lived pedigrees, long-lived families, and they do seem to have variants in this insulin signaling pathway.
Does that then have huge implications for the whole question of diabetes?
Yes. So,
Right.
for instance, when insulin signaling goes wrong, that's when you develop diabetes.
But I mean, in a way, it seems to ramp it up a huge level. It's not just a problem in itself, but it's linked with aging as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, it's very easy, as Jake showed, to manipulate the DNA in our model organisms, but this is much harder to do in a human. So what we're trying to do is understand the pathways that are involved in aging using these model organisms, identify drugs that we can use to manipulate and intervene in these pathways, and apply those drugs to humans to have the same benefit, the same health and life-extending benefits in humans.
This goes back to Cambridge in the late 19th century. It was exploited to a great degree in the 20th century, especially in industrial and manufacture. And going back to great British organisations such as ICI, they used it to look at the purity and to develop the world of paints incredibly. And it was used a lot in metallurgy and in manufacturing processes for looking at the quality of steel. So again, great British connections to coal mining and steel production.
I was very interested in spectrophotometry and the idea of genes being able to have such an influence upon aging, and there's a possibility that the more knowledge we have, the more we can age and appreciate life.
And being a medical person myself, who's been retired for many years, it's been fascinating to see what is going on in the field of research today, and also the potential for it to be applied to many problems of health today, obesity, diabetes, Alzheimer's, etc., with an ageing population.
I was particularly impressed by the details about the worms. I hadn't realised how closely we are connected at a DNA level with them, and therefore how much can be extrapolated from research with them and then applied to the human condition. That was really fascinating.